Hey everybody, welcome back to the show on my channel. It's me and a lovely Lisa Davis, Litecoin Lisa. Good to be back.
I don't have my name changed. Whoops.
I missed you guys too. Good. Yes, I'm back in action. I was out of action for a while. It was rough.
It was a long time.
It was
way too long.
2 freaking months, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I had like 2 things go wrong, so
I know.
I guess I could tell everyone what happened. I went to the doctor like 6 months ago. Well, like 8 months ago, because my heart rate was like 135, 137, but it would never change. It wouldn't change if I was laying in bed. It wouldn't change if I was running around. It was the same, and it didn't make medical sense to me, you know.
Wow.
And I went to the emergency room and I said that. They're like, "Oh my God, your heart rate's 137." I was like, "Yeah, I could lay here, or sit here, close my eyes, meditate, it'd be 137, or I get up and do a little dance, and be out of breath, and it'd be 137." I was like, "Can you explain medically how that works?" And they're like, "No, that's weird, man. You should go see a cardiologist." So this had happened before. It'd go up for like 3 or 4 days, and then it would drop. It would go back to normal. So I go to the cardiologist, and it was fixed. It was fine. And he said, "Well, you probably just read the your stuff wrong." And I was like, "No, I know you talk to dumb people. I'm not a dumb person. I tested it with 3 different oximeters. I know these are the numbers." And he's like, "Well, everything's fine." He said, you have a really bad potassium deficiency. So you got to take potassium."
I remember you saying that.
Put me on a medication. Put me on metapropylol. So, but he was just like appeasing me, putting me on that. So I think so it happens like every month and a half, 2 months, my heart rate goes up, and it's there for a few days, and then I eat bananas and drink vegetable juice and take potassium pills. So it was up to 140, and it was there, like, it wouldn't go down. And normally it's a few days. It was like 2 weeks at 140 constant. And I had a rash, and my rash was on my stomach, and it itched, and then it went up my chest.
Went up your face.
It would hit my face and started to swell my eye. So my kids are like, "You got to go to the emergency room, Dad." So that's fine. So I go to the emergency room, and I said, "Hey, I had this rash, and also I had like a UTI that didn't go away from me coming to the emergency room like 2 months ago." And they're like, "Okay." And they said, "Oh my God, your heart rate's 140. I'm like, "Yeah, it's no big deal. I just eat some bananas." They're like, "No, this is really bad." I was like, "No, man, it's no big deal. Just eat some bananas. I'll be fine." So they're like, "No." And they get the doctor. He comes into the triage room. I didn't even go to a room yet. He was like, "This is an arterial fibrillation. This is very bad." And I'm like, "I came in here 6 months ago, and you guys didn't even know what it was." And he's like, "No, your top of your heart is telling the bottom of your heart to go at 140 beats per minute and stay that way." So they tried to give me drugs to fix it, and they didn't fix it. So I had to go to I said I needed a cardiologist, but they're going to have a cardiologist coming in until Monday. This is Friday. So they called around, and they said that they got me into the cardiology department at this hospital called Advent, which Advent is a nice hospital. It is a good hospital, but their emergency room is hell. It's always been hell. It's terrible. Every person in where I live has terrible stories about it. That's why I didn't go there. It's closer to my house. I went like 30 miles the other way to go to this little hospital where they're like competent people. I was like, I don't want to go to Advent. He said, well, he said, the only other thing we could do is keep you here for 2 days in the emergency room. And I said, okay, I'd rather do that than go to Advent. He goes, well, I would have done that, but I already called. And since we found a place, we got you the room and the bed and everything set up. And the cardiologist is waiting there. So they had to transport me by ambulance. And I knew, as soon as he told me I was going to go there, I knew what was going to happen. And it did. I get there to the hospital. They start taking me out of the ambulance, and they flip the stretcher over, and I crash down into the street. The big hydraulic,
The table on top of you.
down on top of me.
Yeah.
They had a weird IV in my shoulder, so they had the belts that strapped me in a weird place. It was actually around my throat, so I'm like choking after I bash into the ground. And it was, like I said, in the emergency room to this hospital. So there was 2 other ambulances waiting. So like 7 EMTs jump out. They're all like around me. So they pull off, pull the stretcher off me. And then the EMTs got me up, put me in a wheelchair. And I had to go. Now they said you have to go to the emergency room for what happened. I was like, okay. So they said you could lose your room and at the cardiology department. So the whole reason I didn't want to go to this hospital, I didn't want to go to that emergency room, and now I could lose the cardiology place, and I'm in the emergency room. I'm not joking. Within 15 minutes, there's a dog running by my room in the emergency room. Some drug
in the emergency room.
Just looked at me in the door and then walked away. And then I said, Alex, you saw the dog, right? I'm not crazy. There's a dog.
I'm hallucinating.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. Terrible time. I think that they had a occult fracture, which the doctor's like, that's actually not that bad. I was like, then why do they call it a occult fracture? Why don't they call it like puppy fracture or something? That occult fracture sounds bad. Of my thigh, so I couldn't stand on my thigh. I couldn't walk for weeks.
Right.
I was in bed. They tried all different drugs to fix my heart. Nothing fixed it. So they had to do a procedure where they take me, put me under, and then shock my heart. And they fixed it. 2 hours after that, my lungs filled with fluid and I couldn't breathe.
That's what scared me.
Yeah, well, scared me. I thought I was going to die. But the nurses came in and they were like, your numbers look fine. You have enough oxygen. And I'm like, I can't breathe. So they just like, well, I don't know what to do. And left. And so for 10 hours, I sat there gasping. And I didn't know this, but I had my lungs filled with fluid. So I felt like I was drowning. So I had a panic attack. And I never had a panic attack before, so I didn't know what it was. But I couldn't breathe. So I really couldn't breathe. But they didn't know that. They just said, oh, your oxygen's fine. But that's because I was breathing so heavily. So they did an x-ray. They're like, oh, wow, your lungs filled with fluid. So it's something because my heart rate was at 140 for 3 weeks. And then they just stopped it. Or, my lungs, my body was still trying to go at that rate, filled my lungs with fluid. So then for weeks of trying to get the fluid off my lungs and do like physical therapy to walk and stuff again. So didn't get home until last week.
That's terrible.
It was pretty rough. It was rough, man. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure everybody was glad to have you home, and have you get to see all the grandbabies yet?
No, I haven't seen anyone. I missed Oliver's birthday, which sucked.
I know. You were
I was in the hospital for my birthday, which also sucked. But everybody came up there, so it was nice. Yeah. And then they sent me to Austin because I had a lung problem and a thigh problem. My heart was fixed, so I couldn't be at there's a really state-of-the-art, nice cardiology department. So they sent me to this hospital in Austin, which was
For rehab.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if I told you, but they were sending me to that place in Round Rock. It's a really nice state-of-the-art place in Round Rock. Cornerstone, Round Rock. Cornerstone, Round Rock. It's on the paperwork. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone says it. My mom
And then they switched it.
They get there. That was another thing. I had to be on the super high flow oxygen, right? It's like a 50 liters per minute or whatever of oxygen. And it's like a big machine. So it's not like regular oxygen. So they have to have a special stretcher to have this machine hooked to it. So they get there and they come from Austin, which is like an hour and a half by ambulance. They come and they're like, "Oh, we got the wrong stretcher." So they're like, so I'm like, okay. I didn't want to go that day anyway. It was like literally like 15 minutes. They're like, "Oh, you're going to go to this place," after I agreed to go. And then, so we got to get this other stretcher. So they come, they get the next stretcher. It has the thing to hold the oxygen. And they're like, "Oh no, someone forgot to charge the battery." So they had to call and have someone drive a battery down from Austin. So it was like, 5 hours, 6 hours of waiting before we left. And then as we're leaving, it was like, okay, my kids are following me, my friends following me. We came down from Washington. And they're like, "See you in Round Rock." And the EMTs are like, "You know you're not going to Round Rock, right?" It's like, "Yeah, I'm going to Cornerstone and Round Rock." Like, "No, you're going to Cornerstone in Austin." And I'm already checked out, already signed the paperwork to leave.
Oh my God.
So in the elevator, they told me that. I get to, it's an old place in the middle of Austin. It's an old hospital. It's not super, like, very nice or state of the art. It was fine, but it wasn't what I was expecting. But then I was like, I'm here for physical therapy and whatever. The people were super nice.
That's good.
It was a good experience. It was weird. I mean, everyone was nice, so I was nice to people.
You made the best of it, yeah.
But everyone liked me. I liked everyone. It's a big hospital. My kids came, and they came in. And my Asian son was there, Sebastian, and they go to the receptionist, and they're like, "Yeah, we're here to visit, my dad." And they're like, "Okay, who's that?" I said, "Sean Henderson." "Oh, Mr. Henderson. I never met this woman. I don't know who she is." It's the receptionist in this big hospital. She's like, "Yes, he's our favorite patient in the whole hospital. Everyone talks about him." It was the weirdest thing when they came up and told me that. But everyone was nice. It was a nice
That's
place.
good. Yeah, that's nice. Well, we're glad you're back at it.
Yeah, it was an experience. I tell you, don't drop me on. Don't get dropped from an ambulance.
Oh my gosh, that had to be terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, but I didn't, and I would make fun of someone. Honestly, before this happened, I didn't think it would it's affected me. Like, if I mean, if you're sick and you're in an ambulance, you're really in a vulnerable place. So now, anytime I'm like on was getting the X-rays. Anytime I'm in any kind of position now, if any of the hospitals, I don't trust it. And it was like, "Oh, I won't let you fall. Oh, don't worry." I was like, "I don't."
You're like, "Oh yeah, right. I heard that before."
Yeah, it's like, I know you believe that, but and then coming back.
That's very true, because I was with you at the hospital and they were trying to get you to get out of bed, to go, even just to change from the bed to the chair to eat.
Yeah,
And you were like, "No, no, no, no. I stay right here because," and they were like, "Oh, you'll be fine." And you're like, "No, no, no. I'm not pulling that again. I don't trust you guys again,"
yeah,
because you had been injured.
yeah,
Yeah.
and the EMT's like, "This isn't supposed to happen. That can't. It's not supposed to be able to happen." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever, man."
Yeah,
And
I heard that before.
but when I came home,
Yeah.
they're like, "You have to come home in an ambulance on a stretcher." And I was like,
What?
"An hour and a half?"
Why?
Because they said that's how it is. So it was really weird to come home on an ambulance. But going down there, I was so scared. And then they sent 2 ambulances with 4 people, right? So, and it was a Mercedes ambulance coming home because my tailbone was bruised the first time. So I get here, and before we leave, the guy's like, "Hey man, I heard you got dropped. Don't worry, I'm not going to let you get dropped." And I was like, "I know you believe yourself when you're saying that, and I appreciate you saying it, but I don't trust you or anyone." I was like, "Because it happened." And so they got me home, and I can't tell you how horrified I was. Just closed my eyes when they were pulling the stretcher out. I heard the hydraulics go down from the, and then I was ready for it to drop, but it was okay. And then I was high. I'm like, "Can you put me lower to the ground?" And they're like, "Yeah, how low?" I was like, "All the way, as low as this thing will get." So they put me really low, and they were wanting to lift it up, and then it was in the middle of the street. And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna get up and go in my house." And they're like, "No, we're gonna bring you in your house." And I was like, "No, I'm gonna get out of this right now. I don't want to be on this stretcher." And and then they're like, "Don't you want to go in your? Don't us to bring you to through your yard or your house? Do you have more privacy?" I'm like, "No, I don't want to be on this stretcher." I'm like, I
I
have
don't want to risk my life.
anxiety just being on this thing.
Yeah.
So it did mess with my head now. It's weird.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I believe that because I was there and saw how anxious you were just to even in the hospital they were wanting you to use a walker or hold on to something to get out to then go over to the chair, and you were like, no.
Yeah, and I was like, that walker has wheels.
Yeah, hold on to this thing that's gonna move out.
Yeah, I said I have a cane. I'll use my cane to walk. They're like, "Well, that's not safe. You need a walker." It has four posts. I was like, "Yeah, but 2 of them has wheels, and the other 2 have tennis balls." I was like, "How is that sturdier than?" And then the guy got really pissed because he's like, "When you go home, when you're using stuff to make sure you have something that's really sturdy, like a couch or something." I was like, "Oh, something that's like a good base." He said, "Yeah, like a rubber base that won't slide." He said, "Yeah." I said,
not something with wheels.
Like my cane with the rubber bottom, and he was like, "Yeah, I wouldn't use a walker.
I'm sure you're a terrible patient." Yeah. Oh goodness.
I didn't want to use a walker.
Oh my goodness. I don't know why my dog is barking. Oh, these dogs are going to be the death of me.
It is scary. That's terrible.
Oh my goodness. They jumped out of the way instead of catching you. That's awful, Silver Jim. My gosh. What's wrong with humanity?
Everyone's like, "Are you going to sue them?" Or I was like, I thought about it, and I have health insurance, but I don't have prescription insurance. And my prescriptions, when I got to the hospital, $1,100.
I saw you post that.
$1,100. I needed. It was like a lot of prescriptions. I only got 2. The rest of them I left there. But and that's something. The doctor would prescribe me something else every day. Every day he would just throw something on there, and I don't know why. It's corrupt. The medical system is corrupt.
Yeah, I think we know that after the Great Infection, right?
Yeah, and
yeah,
and I think it's criminal though. So you have a generic drug
we know
that you're charging $12, and that company is making money selling that pill for $12. But for what is it, like 3 years? There's no generics. There's like a patent or something.
I don't know how that works, and and then that's only in America, because in other countries they sell it cheaper.
So
but only in America.
They're making money at $12.
Robbed.
And there's this new drug, Jardiance, right? It's for heart stuff and diabetes. 2 of the most common things in the United States, right? It's not like some weird drug, not like a cancer. It's it's diabetes and heart stuff. And so I got a prescription for that. They were giving it to me in the hospital. $600 for the prescription because it's new. There's no generic. So if you're making money selling the generic drugs for $12, $9, how are you allowed?
They're like, I'll take the old stuff.
How bad did we allow, our government to get when it comes to what are they called? The people that buy the politicians, lobbyists. How bad did we allow the lobbyists to where you can charge $600 for something that you would make a ton of money selling it for 12? It's not like, once they sell generic drugs, the drug companies are not making much money. They're making tons of money. And then when I complained about it, I had friends of mine who like are pharmacists. They're like, dude, there's some pills for, and especially pediatric drugs, they said, that are $100,000 prescription. They said we have like tons of patients that pay like 25 to 30,000 a month. It's like not uncommon. That's insane. That's a scam. I mean, I used to be in the insurance industry, and we saw this with the Great Infection. It was the biggest wealth transfer ever. But this is a wealth transfer. If you can charge $30,000 a month for an average person for their medication for them to live, they can't afford that, but they have an insurance policy that pays that.
Right.
And they pay $200 a month, $300 a month for that. But then you have to pay, and it sucks the money off of all these other people who don't have a $30,000 bill. So all of the money is being taken from all of these people, and that's how they do it. They said, let's take 30,000 from this one. We'll charge this one guy. We're going to make 5,000 people pay on it, even though they don't use it. They're not have it. We're going to take their money. It's a way to transfer that money and take that money from everyone by just charging a crazy amount for drugs. It's insane.
But it's happening everywhere. So that's why we were getting involved locally, and met with our city councilwoman and our ward representative. And we were talking to her about just our water bill, one of our concerns. And our water bill last month was over $700. And we were like, most people cannot afford that. Like, I don't know how that is, how most people are able to afford that. And she said, we're redoing all the water systems in the city. And so we decided to do it during the summer months because what we're doing is for up to a certain amount, they're keeping the water dollar amount the same. But if you're somebody who like has a yard or a pool or a bigger yard, then you would use more water in the summer. And so after a certain gallon amount, then the water costs more. So the cost of replacing the city water lines will be deferred to the people that use more water. And I was like, that is the most unfair system. But so the burden goes to the people that use more volume of water, not just everyone. And then we find out there's this whole, which I'm working with our local group, where there's some people that did some more research on this thing called the TIF, and they're restructuring these homes. They say they want to have low-income housing here in our town. Meanwhile, they are incentivizing for these this one area of town where there is low-income housing, for them to destroy these low-income houses, these older homes, and then they build two homes that have no garages, and they cost $500,000 each. And they have told the developers they will do the underground, put in the new sewer and all the piping. Well, guess just when they're doing that, they're redoing all the water lines this summer when we're paying for it. So isn't that convenient? So I have a $700 water bill for them to gentrify this area of town that they are, it's just so crazy. And then they're trying to pass this other bill because we don't have enough low income housing. So they want to put in high density, low income housing in everybody else's neighborhood to lower the
High
uh,
density
high density, low income housing. Basically, big,
apartments kind of thing.
apartments. Yeah. Low income housing. So they want to put those in. Well, you're destroying that over here, but you
I've
want me to
noticed
pay
that
for
a
it with my
really
water bill.
good, if you want to find corruption in your local government, it's usually the water. It's like
There's something, yeah.
that's where they get money. It's not a tax. It's not like
Hmm.
regulated that much. There's they can partner up with like other companies to have them do the billing, and there's
Yep.
usually, if you just look into it a little bit, it's usually
Well,
the
and they're giving the school some kind of kickback on this somehow, that they
yeah. There's
regularly wouldn't get the money, but somehow the school is getting part of the money off this new the TIF area. Like, it's a whole
yeah.
very, I mean, follow the money
I
and
got
you'll
a bill.
find
I got
the
the
corruption.
water bill. I have paid it before the shows actually, but I was worried about it getting cut off because I haven't been able to pay the bills or anything because I've been in the hospital. I haven't been able to talk because I had flu and all. But I got this letter and it said we're sending you this letter because we're going to have a city council meeting because we're rezoning this area. You're getting a letter because the place where we're rezoning is 200 feet from your house. 200 feet is nothing. I live in the middle of a neighborhood, so it's in the neighborhood. So I was like, so I asked my son Ted. I'm like, do you know about this? What is this? I've been in the hospital for 2 months. What's going on with the zone change? He's like, I don't know. I never heard anything about it. So you can look it up, right? It's a 160-page thing. He's like, I'm not reading this thing.
Oh, of course.
I was
Yeah.
like, there's no like synopsis of what it is. He's like, yeah, the synopsis is 160 pages. I was like, so we don't
Wow.
even know what the hell's going on. They sold my mortgage while I was in the hospital. Wells Fargo did. I thought just something was broken. I was like, call my bank. Why hasn't the mortgage come out? They're like, I don't know. And then I was worried. And then I got a letter from some weird mortgage company that said, we got your mortgage from Wells Fargo. You should start paying us on August 2nd. This letter that was dated August 9th that I got on the 20th, it said I should have been paying them since the 2nd.
How bizarre.
Yeah. I was like, and then everyone's talking about problems with Bank of America and this, and I'm thinking, what's going on with my mortgage? Nobody knows it's
Maybe you just hold off for a little while.
so I don't know. Now I got to call these, and it's like Lone Star mortgages or something. It's weird. It's not like a bank or anything. So, hey, it's Larry the Legend. Brooklyn Larry, good to see you, buddy.
Larry the Legend.
Uh,
Nice. Oh, it's Sean's gone. Larry the Legend. He was so excited to see you. He just bailed completely. Well, so interesting. I wonder if anybody else is seeing had their Wells Fargo mortgage.
what'd you knock me off for?
It wasn't me. It was Larry the Legend.
Oh,
I wonder if anybody else in the chat, if you're watching this now or watching it later, put it in the comments if you've had your mortgage sold out from under you. That
yeah.
would be very interesting to
I've, I've,
see.
been, I've been paying it for like 15 years, every 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden, it just didn't come out.
Bizarro land.
And I
Yeah.
honestly thought, well, maybe because I've never had a draft come out of my bank account for 15 years. I thought maybe that's like the legal limit, and I'm gonna have to redo it or something. And
Yeah.
then all of a sudden, I get this letter. It was odd. Oh,
That's
right.
wild. That is wild. Well, I'm so glad you're back.
Glad to be back. It's good to see everybody.
Good to see you. You'll be back on World Blockchain
You guys.
Roundtable this week too.
Yeah, I should be. I have a physical therapist that comes to the house and a nurse that comes. And physical therapist is
all
supposed
the
to come today.
spoiling.
They're still not here.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm getting getting better really fast. Like I was worried.
Good.
I was mad in the hospital because it was really slow, and then all of a sudden it was like it was weird because they were talking about really long-term care, and I was on that high flow oxygen. And
I know, I was very worried. Yeah.
some of the people told me afterwards, but you have to be your own advocate when it comes to the medical industrial complex, especially if you have health insurance, because they'll keep my insurance was going to pay for me to be in the hospital till February. So they were talking about keeping me there in Austin and then me going to
because it's just money for them.
to another place. And I asked them, I was like, hey, can you turn this high flow oxygen down and see how I do? And the guy was like, yeah, sure. He turned it halfway down. They're like, oh, you're doing really good. And they turned it down the next day. I was like, can you turn it down some more? Turned it down. And then the next day, I said, can you turn it? He goes, why don't we just turn it off? You can go back on regular oxygen. This is you're only on like 20 liters. So So they put me on the regular oxygen and I was fine. And then I would just ask the nurse. I wouldn't even ask like the doctor, hey, can you turn that down? Turn down one, like every few hours. And within 3 days, I went from being super high flow dependent to like down to like I actually didn't need the oxygen most of the time. Like when I sleep, I didn't need it. When I was eating, I would need it. But yeah, so but everyone told me it's like, yeah, you have to be your own advocate. You have to ask questions. You have to push them. You have to, or else
for sure.
Kind of keep you.
They already looked up your benefits. They're like, how much money can we get out of this guy?
Like, you can be here till February.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had no insurance. That's why I have 2 belly buttons, because I had a emergency appendectomy. It exploded, and it wasn't even the next day. Like it was it was like the middle of the night. They did the surgery. They just put the staples in, and the next morning, hadn't even a day, even hours. I was in the room. They came in and said, "Okay, we're going to release you." And I was like, "What? I haven't really slept. Hard. Like I slept for like 4 hours." They're like, "Well, it's like a hotel. They're like, you need to be out by noon." So they told me they kicked me out, and then Bambi stick figure came, picked me up in the littlest clown car there was. And when I squashed in it, I popped out like 3 staples.
My gosh.
Yeah, then they took like 6 months for that to heal, and now I have 2 belly buttons.
Terrible. Jim Montgomery, before we go, he's asking about the Silver Symposium. It will be in Vegas, and I put the link in the description. There is a stock poll Silver Symposium, and you can get tickets. You get a discount if you use my ticket or my link over any of my videos. Have a link in the description, and you also get a silver coin.
When is that?
September 29th through October 1st.
Okay, I thought you already did it.
No, September 29th through October 1st.
Well, I was
Symposium in Las Vegas.
It was time,
yes.
So,
Okay. You have an excuse.
Yeah.
You get a pass.
All right. Well, it was awesome hanging out with you. It was awesome hanging out with all you guys. Remember to hit the like button and share, comments, all that kind of stuff. I'm going to do a crypto meme review. I was going to do it yesterday or today, but I wanted the first thing to be the True Tuesdays when I came back. So, all right.
Very good.
Love you guys. I will see you all later. Wait, let me put a video on so we can go out. Here we go.